The Tim Heale Thirsty Thursday live stream from 7 until 9 weekly. Here's your host, Tim Heale.
Right, back to tonight. So we've had some thinking time. To get a question.
Has anyone got the answer?
I think there are many, many answers.
Yeah, of course.
So, what was I doing? I've lost the plot. Where am I going? What am I doing?
No, the question was, how do we encourage people to
That's it.
check in if they're not ready to open up to somebody that they don't really know, or they maybe not feel fully comfortable in that moment, and they recognize that, yeah, something's off and I really don't want to talk about it right now. Are you able to verbalize that? Generally speaking, when we're in that space, when we are dealing with an issue, we don't really have the ability to say, I don't know about you guys, but I don't necessarily have the ability to say, just don't talk to me right now or leave me alone, because I'm so I really go internal. I very much retreat into myself and say, I'm just surviving. I'm doing what I can. And for me, it works when my husband says, how are you really? And yet I have noticed people who say, they're like, I'm getting through. If they give me that kind of an answer the second time I ask, I often just let them know, I'm here for you. If you find that you need something, or if you find that you need to talk, I am absolutely open and able and ready. I will make the time to be there for you. You just let me know. I just let them know that it's an open offer. It's an open invitation, because sometimes we have to get out of those woods just a little bit before we can accept the offer from someone else.
Yeah. There you go, Tony. Yes, the topic is self-care, and it's all about identifying in oneself if you're having problems, and we're going to look at where you can go to get some help. So there you go. Yeah. So where can we go to find that help? What improvements can we do in the mental health area? So we've got some things coming in now.
That's a really big question.
That is a big question.
Yeah.
I guess the first thing you've got to do is identify that you've got the problem, and it'll be your problem. It won't be anybody else's. And then once you've identified you've got a problem, where do you go to get some help? How's the best way of going forward with help?
So this is a tricky one, because I think that when you are dealing, I've had very close people I've dealt with mental health. They can be in a point where it is, it's scary. It's a very unknown, volatile time. If for them to decide that they are at a point where they need help, sometimes that doesn't happen, because they don't see it as a problem, or they don't see it as, or it's the mindset of, no one gets me, because obviously there's something wrong with me. So part of me, and I don't know the answer. I'm not a mental health expert. I also I think we have to be mindful with labels that because I do believe mental health affects every single person in some way, shape, or form in their life. So I really like to steer clear of labeling it as a problem. And the second part of this that's a challenge is, I believe that a lot of, depending on where you are in the world, all I can comment in is from Canada right now. And in Ontario, our healthcare system has taken a major, major hit from the pandemic. And where we did not have a lot of available resources before, we have far less now. And so I think that gets even harder, because we've been in a position where we've had to look and search for resources for a family member. And it was really hard to find then. And then you get them to that point and they have to 100% consent to be there. Or they then can be in a space, it's like, well, we can't get you a doctor's appointment in 2 weeks, or we can get you to, and I'm like, okay, no, it's this crisis now. So I don't have an easy answer that way. What I can say is that from Ontario, Canada, we have a number of crisis hotlines that, in my opinion, have been instrumentally helpful at critical times, like beyond helpful. So I am grateful for those sources of support, because we all know that people don't struggle with problems between 9 and 5 or 9 and 4 p.m. And that's just not when things happen. The crisis points happen in the middle of the night. They happen on the weekends when people are even more isolated. So I know those resources, I can speak firsthand, have been incredibly helpful.
Just want to put up a quick comment that Tony's Coffee's House has put up. Thank you very much, Tony.
Yeah.
We've done our best to get a knowledgeable and very, very knowledgeable panel together.
I'd like to jump in on that answer if you don't mind. Thanks, Tony. The improvement that I think has to happen is, no matter where you are in the world, is this societal destigmatization of mental health. And it starts with each individual saying, it's okay, I'm depressed. It's okay, I'm struggling. It's okay that things are not optimal in this moment. The more that we talk about it, the more that we acknowledge that it is real, that every single human being deals with it on some level throughout their lives. The easier it is to talk about, the easier it is to find help, because more people are openly searching for it. I also believe that waiting until we're in crisis is not necessarily the time to find the doctor that we can talk to. I think that if we shop around, I'm air quoting, shop around for a talk doc, a counselor, someone that we can go to with issues before we're in crisis, that when we are in crisis, you've already got that relationship. You've already got somebody that you can go talk to, because you have destigmatized the fact that you struggle and just need somebody to talk to. We can do that work if we decide that we're worth it and it's not a bad thing to need a little help. Every single one of us needs help.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Me included. I need loads of help, particularly on a Thursday.
We all do. We all do. Yeah. For England, so for the UK, Tim, I think so. Basically, it kind of boils down to knowing how to recognise, knowing where to go, and knowing that there's no shame in actually going to that place or to that resource. I know that Mind, the mental health charity, they're trying to push the government to fund the Fund the Hubs campaign, which is making sure that there is a place available at schools for children. And it's a mental health hub. It's going to be like a government provided hub, which is going to be a safe place for students to go. At that age, it affects the male and female students differently, but it's a very, very volatile time for a child, with the pressure of what they've got to achieve at school, plus the pressure of just knowing how to be a social person and how they work. You have people, kids test out bullying just to see how it works out for them, and this is just the cruel nature of the way life is, and the people, unfortunately, that are on the receiving end and want to get out of it. It affects the people that befriend the bullies, and they see the bully, and it affects them as well. So they don't have anywhere to go, so they're kind of stuck with being stuck with the confused kid who's trying to test out the bullying mechanic and things like that. Yes, I think there is a massive shortage when it comes to the resources that are available. I think that seems to be a global problem, essentially. But again, I think my attention just needs to be probably hitting the school age. I think it's interesting to me that we make PE, we make physical education, a compulsory subject for schools. Primary school and secondary school, you hit third year secondary school. I know it's different years now because I'm I'm getting ancient, even though I don't look it yet. But we have, when I was at senior school, it was like first year, second year, third year. Now it's year 7, 8, 9. So when you get to year 9, you have to take your options. So you pick which subjects you're going to do. But PE, you got no choice in it. You got to do PE. So there should be a mental health group that is compulsory for kids to be encouraged and to destigmatize, essentially, for when they get out of school, to know this isn't a strange thing, because I've been talking about my mental health and the crap that I've had to go through and the stuff that I've seen at school, and I've talked about it with a group, and now I know that there's no shame in it. And now out in the real world at work, and now I know I can talk to my colleagues about it. And I think another one of the problems we get is going back to what Marsha was saying. When you're going through a mental health, I don't want to say it when you're going through a mental health, when you're suffering from bad weather, you take the bad weather as the world that you're in. You're not able to separate from it. And so sometimes it's not so much the fact that there is shame in admitting that there's something going on. It's that sometimes we're not able to separate the fact that there's the world that we're in and the situation that we're in and the problems that we have. But then there's the mental health associated with it and the kind of separate things in a way, but we're not able to see it as being separate from the situation that we're in. So when we're going through massive depression, we think, talking personally from personal experience, we think that this world that I am in is massively depressing. Mm-hmm. It's not the fact that, okay, I'm in a bit of a shitty situation now and I'm depressed about it. It's I'm stuck in this massively depressing world and I need to get out of it, or, there's no way out. There's no point me talking to anyone because it's just a depressing world. And it's not that's the case. It's the fact that I'm depressed about the world at the minute, or I'm depressed about the situation, and it's not necessarily the same thing. So getting that message out, I think, is something that will help improve as well.
Chris, that's fantastic. Like, I think that's great advice. I love the whole mental weather, like just the way you simplified that. I think it's so valuable for so many people. And I love the concept that it needs to be something that's talked about at a much younger age. When I often think of, for example, like even in our position, there are times I wish that we could openly have kids see a counselor or a therapist from a young age to normalize that it's okay. Like I've seen one multiple times in my life and at very big crisis times. And so because we don't talk even about that, it seems like there must be something wrong with you if you're doing that. I think we could normalize that from a very young age, that it's like, this is what you're feeling. Those feelings are normal. It's normal. And this is something that you could do to support yourself. So I think introducing that at a younger age just normalizes more of this approach.
Yeah, definitely.
And that can be in the school system. It can be in the home. It can be on so many different levels where kids are exposed to the fact that it's okay to have any kind of mental weather, and let's express it instead of hide it, because emotions have historically been something that we all tamp down and hide instead of sharing. This is where I'm at right now. I'm feeling a little sad. I'm feeling a little depressed. I'm feeling a little stuck and frustrated, whatever that is that we're in. A lot of us have been taught to smooth it over, add a little sugar coating, and not fully express where we're at and how we are. And that does a disservice to us and our kids and our grandkids. And in general, it just keeps perpetuating that cycle of anything that's not I'm fine is not right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Tony's coffee house has just popped in another one. Have a read of that.
Life vision.
Counsellors and a strong education for teachers. I don't know what you guys have seen about teachers recently, but what they're teaching in schools isn't what they taught us back in the day. I think they are far too leftist. They're just take the climate crisis. The climate's always happened. These climate activists, I'm just going off script slightly, but there's a point to this. The climate activists just focus in on the bit that they can, they can, lost the word. That they can make it really, really sort of a crisis. But if you speak to an actual environmentist who looks at a longer picture, they can dispel everything that these climate activists are coming out with. And the climate has ever since the planet's been here, ever since Earth's been evolved, has had these cycles. And we're just going through a cycle of movement. You look at last summer, particularly in the UK, was wet and miserable for most of it. You go back to 1976 when we last had a heat wave similar to this. I mean, the one back then lasted, I think it was about 7 or 8 weeks. And it was like this for 7 or 8 weeks. But we didn't have the climate activists saying that we're all doomed, that the world's coming to an end, we're going to fry ourselves.
They were there.
The winter coming. All right, we might have a dry winter this year, but next summer we might be soaking wet again. So what they're teaching kids in school is the doom and gloom, the crisis that they're all going to die before they get old. And I think that's one of the things that they need to educate the educators, because they are giving the wrong information to our kids. They are giving them leftist thoughts that they're not going to grow up to have a life, and that in itself is going to damage them. And what they've gone through in the last 2 years, I mean, you imagine in a class, when they did manage to go to school and they're like that, and all they've seen is a teacher like that, they're all muzzled up. You're not seeing facial expressions. There's a couple of years worth of kids that have gone through not being able to pick up on facial expressions, not being able to speak correctly because they can't see people's mouths moving and stuff like that. And that's going to come back and bite us in years to come. So, the point I'm trying to make is that the education in schools needs to change from the narrative that they're trying to push at the moment. So they need to look at what they're teaching kids about, particularly mental health first aid, to give them the tools to be able to cope with not a crisis that's going on. And they need to change that narrative.
I can't say too much about the environmental stuff because that's not my expertise. But yeah, I think teachers generally, I don't know if it's the same in the States or or anywhere else, but I think they're generally given safeguarding courses currently. So in the safeguarding courses, they're taught to maybe spot certain things, but I think it's more to do with the kind of the protection of youths, sort of protecting them from, signs of abuse and neglect, things like that. But yeah, I think maybe giving them more information to that arsenal to be able to educate the kids to, encourage a little bit of a how are you doing and a how are you doing really at the beginning of a class, just to get them used to experiencing that. And how do you feel about the class at the end of a class? How are you coping? How was your homework? How are you managing? Are you worried about getting your homework done? I mean, problem is there's a lot of teenagers are just like, they don't want to really share that because obviously basically the stigmas and things that we experience as adults are probably amplified tenfold at that age. So a stigma, an embarrassment that we'll feel at 41 is probably amplified 10 times to a kid who's 14 and 15. So it's kind of even more of a barrier that they have to push through, because the making this that finding that place in the social environment that they're in and amongst the other kids is crucial at that age. The brain is really trying to figure out, and the brain actually, for example, for females, and as a non-female, I know I'll be careful. So just jump in, do jump in though. But obviously from the you know, the many years ago, when we sort of lived in the, you know, hunter-gatherer age, the females, it was very important for them to protect the young and to form a really strong community bond formed, because it, you know, there was strength in numbers, and it helped protect the young, and it formed this really strong community. And this genetical is the right word, I don't know, but this need has continued to today's age, to the extent that when a person of, you know, for a girl of 14 and 15 is excluded from a group, which could be by bullying, or it could be, you know, or maybe she's just getting picked on, or maybe it's like, oh, I don't like that your hair, or I don't like the shirt that you're wearing, or something like that, or a boy will pick on her, and she feels that excluding. Well, the brain has evolved to actually, in a way, kind of punish the girl to encourage her to form a stronger bond. So it kind of releases, I don't know if it's a depression hormone, but it releases a kind of hormone that makes the girl feel bad, but also encouraged to do something about it to make that bond stronger. And that is how crucial it is. And for boys, that doesn't affect them as much, because the boys are kind of more, they've naturally evolved to be more of a kind of a loner. So that exclusion doesn't affect them quite in the same way, even though they'll go through the bad moods and things. But that is like how it is amplified so much, because that is the age where your brain is physically learning how to become a part of a group, and how like everything is amplified. Stigmas are like amplified, and being bullied is like the effects. If someone was bullying me at 41, I know I'd be pretty ticked off, but at 14 and 15, that is like amplified 10, 20 times. And so what they're going through, plus it's experience relative to age as well. So I've seen a lot at 41. I've crashed cars and had all sorts of stuff happen. At 15, you know, if you've had a healthy upbringing, you kind of haven't really had much bad happen, really. So being bullied is more of a big deal. So I think that awareness of that, so we can train teachers to provide information about what's going on, might help. I do waffle on, don't I? Just
Right, just going to take a quick break, because we're coming up to the hour. We've been at this an hour. It's flown by. Where's that gone? Where's the last hour gone? Just like to say hi, Sylvia, for clicking the like. Right, going to do a quick bit of housekeeping. So 1st of September, we've got a rugby special coming up. We're going to talk about the regimental rugby, and we're also going to talk about the upcoming Premiership season. And I'm hopefully going to get some experts in, and we'll have a parlay about that. We'll have a couple of hours talking about rugby. The 8th of September, archaeological special. That's going to be a fascinating one. You don't want to miss that. Pop it in your diary. Thursday, 7 till 9, British summertime, and then the big one at the end of September is veterans' mental health, and we're going to try and focus in on our next subject, but we're going to do that one on there. So that's what we've got coming up. So if you can click the old like button, let us know you're here. pop a question in the chat box to let us know that you've got a question. And our next subject that we're going to spend a bit of time looking at is something that I think most of us have experienced at some stage in our lives. So we're going to look at suicide awareness, and the effects of suicide on others. So that's the next set of questions. I know it's a tough subject. I know it's going to be a difficult one. I certainly might. I might get a bit emotional. Anyway, we'll worry about that as we go through. That's what we're going to look at. Okay, we're just going to try and identify signs and symptoms of people that aren't feeling particularly well, and they're looking at maybe doing something daft. So, suicide awareness.
The Tim Heale Thirsty Thursday live stream from 7 until 9 weekly.